go.
So, good afternoon, people. I'm so glad to see you here. So, like, on this late time, look at you. You're so amazing. So, well, okay, enough of all those fangirly stuff here. I came here for a reason, and this reason is demystifying e-commerce, which might look like an opaque box, yeah, but you don't need to be scared off by it. So let me show it to you with the help of Vue 3 and Nuxt 3 and the project called Shopware Frontends. But before that, real quick, my name is Ramona. As Mark already said, I am a software engineer at Shopware, which is a company providing an open source e-commerce platform. And yeah, besides that, I'm a GDE for web technologies and a Cypress ambassador. And as it was already hinted, yeah, I might be known for my content in testing or as the girl with the Star Wars slides. But unfortunately, no Star Wars reference today, but some better. Hopefully you like them. All right. Well, besides testing, my focus on my daily doing is front-end, and it's close to my heart because, well, it was the entry point for me to come to tech and basically start with web development. Because if you see my slides, I obviously love to draw, especially in this manga kind of style, and especially in my high school time, I wanted to present my drawings, but I didn't want to be dependent on such platforms like, I don't know if you know them, but DeviantArt, Animex, like some early social network thingies for art and stuff and pictures. And yeah, I wanted to have my own, with my own fingerprint, right? So I ended up learning some first little bits of web development, and I don't think you want to see those sites. They are cringy as well, sorry. Yeah, so I ended up here, and I love it. And I tell you all this little stuff of my history because I see there's one significant connection in between front-end development, or development in general, and arts. And I do think this is a common goal. We share a common wish, which is really interesting when it comes to our audience. May it be you, may it be a viewer, may it be people in a museum, or on DeviantArt, I don't know, any audience. It's about this one. Well, as dev and artists alike, it's about connecting with your audience, giving them the best experience when it comes to basically your website, your side project, your feature, or your image, your picture you draw. So as a dev, we strive to connect with this audience, and we strive to connect the audience with the brand. And this connection is especially important for e-commerce, right? Because they are users, they visit your online shop, maybe they take some look around, we want them to engage with our shop, to spend a little time in it, maybe find a product or two, and ideally turn them into a customer, hopefully. So, well, imagine this. I'm not working at Shopware, I'm just an entry-level developer. And I want to include some e-commerce features into my website. May it be, for example, my blog. And I maybe happen to provide some courses or any other means to monetize it. And yeah, I want to include it to my website, which has nothing to do with e-commerce whatsoever. And I don't want to use an online shop because there are so many similar looking ones. As I said, I want to have my own fingerprint in it. I want to have my own experience. I want those features. I want to display some product and put it into the cart. And I wouldn't have that on my blog. So what should I do if I don't have that much e-commerce knowledge? It doesn't seem to be a good idea for me to build it myself, right? It seems so daunting. E-commerce, as said, might look like an opaque box to me. I cannot decipher it. All those calculations, all this business knowledge, domain knowledge, it's complicated, right? So, well, what should I do now? Should I really go back to a similar default boring online shop? Nah, you don't need to be worried. So in this story, I wouldn't be worried, so you don't need to be worried as well. So there are a couple of ways to implement e-commerce functionality into your online shop or into your website without needing to take care of all those stuff, right? So you can focus on the one thing which is important, creating the best experience and having the best developer experience for you. So back to reality, I do work at Shopware. So the solution I want to introduce to you is yeah, basically using Shopware data or as a data source and its core features to handle the e-commerce. It's called Shopware Frontends, at least for now. It is a small framework, so to say, to provide you e-commerce functionality to your website, as said. And it's thanks to Shopware's headless approach that we have a set of tools and best practices to get most of its APIs. Well, a little fact, it's still a working title, so the API is not completely final, but it's stable enough to be used. So please play around with it. And especially if you got a good idea for a fitting title, please come back to me. All right. Let's take a look at the stack of Shopware Frontends. It's built on a small subset of Vue 3, Vite, Next 3, and some Tailwind, depending on if you want to completely start from scratch or maybe want to have a little template on hand. And that's it. Basically, you can build the UI the way you want to. You can use frameworks like you want to, the means, the styles. You can focus on the way you're most comfortable with and most used to. So you have the freedom to build the experience you want to have. Now you could ask me, like, how does this work in general? Is it worth to try it out? Well, it's basically a collection of multiple packages, like I marked here in these teal or blue colors thingies. Let's start with the data source. So the Shopware store, like the online store we use as a data source, is of course important, but it's just one supported source. You can include some data sources like a CMS you're using or analytics or basically anything you want, so it's not the single point of truth. Yeah. Then we come to the logic, which is basically containing all the domain-specific business functionality. That might be routing, that might be the base for CMS functionality, searches and filters, some price formatting of basically anything you don't want to take care of, especially if you want to build the UI, right? So there are 4 most important packages, and well, the things we will take a look at are especially the composer one. This is a central aspect of Shopware frontends, which I cover in a bit. But for now, it's important to know it fetches its data through the API client. And the API client itself gets it from Shopware, so like the online store itself. All right, so last but not least, the template. You could start from scratch, as we said, but there are some templates to guide you as well. If you choose to use such a template, you could think about, OK, we're using a Next runtime in it. So it takes care of the routing, server-side rendering, and the code splitting if you want to. And then, if you are building your template, you could use the composables in the package to basically, yeah, build your own components and enrich it with the e-commerce features. Same with other components you might need, especially if you're working with some CMS and stuff. So that's basically how it works. But as I said, let's take a quicker look and closer look on the composables itself. Well, this is a little screenshot of a full e-commerce online shop, right? And you can picture it like that. We can separate it into small parts, like one shop functionality is one small part, like Lego bricks, for example. So you could basically build your online shops like you play around and build with Lego bricks. And yeah, I already briefly mentioned it. It's made from composables. And I'm talking about the typical Vue composables. That means, just in short, that these are functions leveraging Vue Free Composition API to encapsulate and reuse some logic. And this logic are our e-commerce functionalities. So maybe state management on top of that, or UI logic, data fetching, anything. One shop functionality is one composable. All right, in theory, that sounds quite great, right? So, OK, let's apply a reality filter into it. How does it look like in code? And so let's take a quick look at how to include actual e-commerce functionality in our little project. So when I'm thinking about a suitable example, might be a good idea to just display a product, like in a product cart. So, OK. But when I want to start, basically, let's take a look, if I want to work locally, what I need to make sure it's available beforehand, basically. So you need some Shopware 6 online shop to use its API, the store API, to be precise here. And then, yeah, you don't need to set it up yourself. So if you don't configure any online shop behind it, we could just take our fallback demo instance, which we have pre-configured. So it's just that one Shopware instance is necessary to have one data source. All right. Then there's Node.js, so you need to have it installed. And if you have Node.js, which is required, you need to use version 16 or 18 in long-term support. And, which is often the case, you have a package manager installed, which you need to use then as well. All right. As you could start with an own template, I will do the same in this little session, in this little showcase. So you can start up with this blank template, which you see here. So it's really, really small, like some Nuxt3 template and nothing more than that. So you're still quite free when it comes to your experience. So I use it here as well. But you could also go for the full demo template, which showcases a full online shop. This is good, for example, if you want to play around with the full feature set or see what's possible with Shopware frontends. So the question is now, how do we get from the blank template to a full online shop? Yeah, let's get started. So if we start in an own project, of course, we need to clone the repository first from GitHub, and then the installation will happen. So just use your typical installation prompt you're used to when it comes to your package manager, and the same for running the project. So just some little script, some little command, and you're done for. Then, as soon as you installed it, you can basically find this basic product structure. And let's take a little look on where to find what, right? So let's start with the most important configuration we have, which is the environment variables in the env file. So there you can connect your online shop basically to your little project. So as said, no need to set up a complete Shopware instance for yourself. There's a fallback. But of course, it's only a fallback. So if you got a real online shop, please use these environment variables to configure it. So it's the shop domain, so the URL where your shop can be found, and the API token. You need to authenticate yourself. All right, back to the product structure. So it's a kind of normal Nuxt template where you have all the typical files when it comes to that, like the Nuxt config, some app.vue as an entry point for a single-page application, and some folder for all the components we built, and where the magic happens in our little example here. So yeah, some more stuff like a Tailwind config or a TypeScript config if you want to use it. This is the typical Tailwind product card I want to use. And when we look at that, what might be a good composable we need to use, a good first for an example? Well, to display a product, we need to get the information of a product, right? So our first composable we will use is a product search composable. Well, to use it, of course, we need to create a known component first, and we'll take a look at this in a bit. So this component is called product card, and we will basically import it into our app.vue to just display it, like you used to. And afterwards, yeah, let's get going with our own component then. So there I will use the composable to access product data. I'm setting it as a constant, like the search one, where I get the product basically, and the product itself, where I basically fetch it with the ID of a product which is existing in the online shop instance, and save it in another constant. And then we are already ready to use this product. So basically all information which belongs to a product, like a name, which we can put into a heading, or image stuff like the product image, so the source, or the alt attribute. So these are only examples. There are other stuff like the weightings or stock, basically anything which is connected to a product in an online shop. So, of course, this is not enough for a product card, right? Because if you're a customer, you want to see a price, or maybe you don't want to see it, but I guess we are obligated to do this. So yeah, let's take a look. We need another composable for it, which is using the name useProductPrice. This is a price. Well, so we will use the useProductPrice composable to get the unit price, and then we will pass it. We will get it by passing in the product we were working on, and then we will use it to the usePrice composable to get the proper price formatting, so everything is in order and the way it should be. Yeah, and again, there's more available in those composables, like getting the taxes, the list price, whatever you need when it comes to a price. Well, yeah, and I guess then we are ready to style. And I guess I will fast forward here because the time slot is not enough to do table styling, but as it's not that important right now, let's take it for granted, and it looks like this. Wonderful. We have a typical table product card with some small good styling, and yeah, it looks good. It has product information in it, and it has one more thing. See this little button there, here? Well, it doesn't do a lot now, and I guess the time is still okay to extend this little example, to have a full-blown e-commerce workflow. Like, it's not enough to just watch a product. We want to put it into the cart because we want to turn users into customers, right? All right, so let's end our use case with a little cart. So we want to put products into a cart. And therefore, we need some more composables because more e-commerce functionality is needed in this regard. May it be, yeah, the cart items, some sums and numbers like the subtotal, the shipping, and the total price, all those prices a customer would like to know when it comes to shopping, right? And of course, we need to have a functionality to add something to the cart. There's the use add to cart composable, and maybe keeping the cart up to date, which is refreshed cart. Yeah, so many composables to use now. But it's still not that different to displaying data. So let's start with the product cart again, where we want to give functionality to the button, fill the button with life, basically. So we will use a click event because we want to click a button, right? All right, so use the add to cart composable inside of the click event, and again, pass the product, so we add the right product to the cart. We don't want to be surprised here, right? So, yeah, everything, when it comes to the cart, is now already handled in the background. But we want to have a look at it. So I want to extend this example even more. So, all right, we build another little component, and the clicker doesn't work like I want to. There we go. So we will create a cart component. And it's basically the same as before. We will import all those composables I talked before as a constant. And basically use it as, yeah, mentioned before in the source code. I want to have an up-to-date cart, so what I will use the refresh cart composable in unmounted. So it's, if you add some product to the cart or remove it or reload it, it's always up to date. And then we will use all the cart data the same way we did in the product. So may it be data, actions, and methods. At first, I will loop through all the items we have in the cart, like all the line items, all the cart items, and display them together with the quantity and the label and the unit price. Again, properly formatted so everything is the way we should have it in an online shop. And then, to be even more correct, we need to get all the numbers, all the sums into the cart by using, again, the getFormatedPrice composable on all the data we want. Here you see the total price, but it could be like the shipping price, whatever you need. All right, so we were able to build a wonderful little example with a full e-commerce workflow. Like, we are able to see a product, put it into the cart, remove it from the cart, and it stays reactive and up to date, and hopefully, at least for this small time frame, a little bit pretty, hopefully. So, If you want to take a look at this little example, you can scan this QR code and look at Stack Blitz if you want to. I keep it open for a little something so you can scan it. But there will be other QR codes later on for documentation and other things, so you'll be covered. So 3, 2, 1, I hope you're ready. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from today, from my talk, it's this one. Composables, all the things. At least when it comes to Shopware Frontend. So I like to phrase it as composable commerce. So all tiny e-commerce functions are put into neat little composables and then provided to you. I guess it's a really sweet example for the composition API, right? And there are more than just when it comes to product and cart. We have, I guess, let me lie, more than 50 of those. So for users, customers, wish lists, logging in, stuff like that. So I should not list them here, so you can take a look at the documentation later on. To sum it up real quick, apart from the role of composables, well, e-commerce isn't that scary. So the project Shopware Frontend can help you with implementing e-commerce functionality inside of your website, no matter what it is, if you want to. You don't need to learn or get an e-commerce pro to help you. You can do it by yourself. You don't need to be worried, really. And please focus on the things you like most as a front-end developer, creating the best experience you want to have. All right, so as hinted before, there's some documentation you could take a look at if you want to. This little example project can be found on GitHub as well, so please scan the repo if you're interested. And last but not least, if you got any questions, I'll be here in the venue, of course, but if you want to ask me or my team, because they are here as well, thankfully, you can find us on Slack. So feel free to reach out to us at any time, but you can find me on Twitter, Mastodon, LinkedIn, or anywhere here on the venue today. I'd love to talk with you and get to know you, and especially get your feedback, yeah? So, without further ado, I don't know what to say then. Thank you. Thank you for being here with me on this late time, basically. I was really happy to have you as my audience, and hopefully we see each other on the after show party. Goodbye.